Welcome to myFace, myStory, voices from the craniofacial community, with your host, Dina Zuckerberg.
Hello, and welcome to myFace, myStory, voices from the craniofacial community. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcasts, click subscribe now so that you'll never miss a future episode. And if you're a fan of myFace, myStory, rate and review the program on Apple Podcasts so that we can get our message of inclusivity and empowerment to more people. I'm your host, Dina Zuckerberg, the Director of Family Programs at myFace. I was born with a cleft lip, a hearing loss, and no vision in my left eye. myFace, myStory is about people like us being seen and heard, about sharing stories within the craniofacial community and with others. This podcast episode is made possible through support from the Integra Foundation, committed to improving lives. Today, I will be joined by Megan Gaydosh and Tiffany Kerchner. Megan, a former special education teacher, is now a birth doula. She loves to sing and write song parodies to inspire self-love and acceptance. She was born missing the seventh cranial nerve on her left side. While having a facial difference once held her back from pursuing her dreams of becoming a singer and actress, she now confidently affirms that anything is possible and that differences only make us more of who we are. Tiffany is a nurse by day and a facial difference advocate on social media. She uses her platform to educate and spread awareness for the social injustices that her facial difference community faces every day. She was born with a rare neurological disorder called Mobius syndrome, which causes the right side of her face to be completely paralyzed. In her spare time, she enjoys reading, hanging out with her dog and cat, and tending to her houseplants. She believes it's time to break beauty standards and showcase more individuals with physical differences, disabilities, and other medical complexities. Welcome, Megan and Tiffany. I really look forward to our conversation.
Hi, so happy to be here.
Yes.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes. So let's get started. Um, Megan, can you share a bit of your personal journey of growing up with a facial difference?
Yeah, like you said, born paralyzed on my left side, missing a facial nerve. And it was always something that, I felt needed to be fixed or was always hoping for some surgery or something that would, make me feel and look normal.
Mm-hmm.
And in my teens, I did have a two-part nerve graft surgery where I did get some more movement on my left side. But I found that even, having surgeries, that still was not going to look like most people. And that even having those surgeries brought more questions and comments about scars and, how long is it going to take to smile normally and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of added some extra layers of insecurity, actually. But I am, glad that I did it because I think I probably would have wondered, what if not. But I think in realizing that my face is going to be different for my whole life, it felt kind of crushing in my teen years and then into my adult years, making connections with other people with facial differences and finding that community and seeing them as so beautiful
Mm-hmm.
helped me be able to then see that in myself and just sort of completely reframed how I see my difference. Like now I feel like it's kind of like a superpower. Like I can make a difference with my difference instead of feeling less than because of it.
It is freeing, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
good feel when you can just be out there and sharing who you are without needing to hide it or
Hmm.
being uncomfortable with it. And I think it's definitely a journey. So, Tiffany, I imagine you can relate some, and can you share with us your personal journey?
I feel like I should be talking about how traumatic my childhood was, because there is the trauma of being hospitalized frequently. There is the trauma of the negative stigma against us and going out in public and then being bullied in school. But I was a happy child despite everything. I think between the ages of 2 and 16, I had 13 surgeries. Despite all of that, I was still happy, and I did still, as happy as I was, I did have that like shame about my appearance. I started growing my hair out, and I started wearing it a certain way so that it wasn't as visible when I was out in public. And like Megan said, I would hope and pray, like one day I'd get a phone call like, hey, we're going to do the surgery and you're going to look like everybody else.
Mm.
And that day never came. And I carried that shame with me. And I think just when I started getting like more onto social media and I started seeing more people with facial differences, and I'd be looking at them and I'm like, wow, they're so beautiful. Like, look at that woman. She's so beautiful. And then, one day it clicked and it's like, well, if she's beautiful with a facial difference, why can't I be beautiful with a facial difference? And then I just started seeing my difference as this, I almost feel like it's a gift, because it's made me the person I am. And it's given me this community of people. It's given me a lot.
I always say it, right? There's power in the shared story and knowing you're not alone. And when you find that community, it really does make a big difference to realize, wait, I'm not the only one that felt that way. I'm not the only one that
Yes.
thinks this way. Yeah.
Yes.
Doesn't. So, Tiffany, why did you want to become a nurse?
As I said, I spent a lot of time in hospitals, in doctors' offices, and when I'd have surgery, I'd spend a couple days up to like weeks at a time in the hospital recovering. And some of my surgeries, I would have drainage tubes coming out of my like head and face area or wherever they operated on. And it would just make my hair this like matted mess. And, just from laying in the hospital bed, and it was the day I was being discharged, and I had my nurse, and her name, I still remember, her name was Brittany, and she was wearing a butterfly on her shirt, and I will never forget her. She came in to, go over the discharge paperwork with my parents. And then she said to me, why don't we go take a shower and I'm going to fix your hair so you can look really pretty to go home. And she washed my hair and she put my hair in braids. And I was like, wow, like she didn't have to do that. Like, I know how busy her job is. I know she has more important things to do, yet she took 20 minutes out of her day to make me feel good. And that really inspired me to want to do the same thing for other people.
Megan, I know you were a special education teacher. Now you are a doula. I don't know if it did, but did your facial difference influence your choices?
Yes, because I kind of, I really wanted to empower kids with disabilities. And it was sort of in that job where I did kind of start to make the shift of like, because I would talk to my students and tell them, anything is possible. You can do anything. I would like show them slideshows of different people with disabilities who are famous, like we would have these conversations of like, you can do anything that you want to do. And then I would kind of internalize that and be like, why can't I tell that to myself? Because I definitely haven't done the things that I wanted to do, because I felt like that was not possible looking the way that I look, to audition for something or, to put myself on stage. It was just always so terrifying. So I feel like in special education, it kind of helped me send that message to myself. And I did really really love being a special education teacher. And then I had my own children and found I did not have the time. I didn't feel like I could do both well or have patience for my own kids at the end of the day. And so that's kind of how I shifted to the doula role, because no matter how many babies I have, I will have baby fever. And kind of helps me get the baby fix, and giving birth myself and being postpartum, I really thought that I knew what to expect and realized had no idea, and just wanted to help other women have an easier time through that process.
How did your journeys lead you to become advocates now? And was there someone or something that inspired you to want to share your story and messages with others?
Started for me on TikTok. It was about 3 years ago, and I was just, scrolling, staying up late, and I just thought, there really is like something for everybody here. I wonder if I just searched facial paralysis, facial differences, and I just found multiple people in the community. And I just had this like big aha moment of like, okay, these are my people. I want to join them. I want to do this too. And then, the next day I just started posting about my story. And, I had posted before, but nothing about my face or, my story of living with a facial difference. And finding that community kind of made it feel like a safer space. Like I wasn't alone, even if it didn't go well, I had these people in my corner. And the more I've done it, the more connections I've made. And, like Tiffany is one of my, we call each other soul sisters because we have just so much in common and can relate to so much with each other. And it's just really cool to feel like you have this whole community supporting you.
And Tiffany, did you have anybody who inspired you, or what made you decide that you wanted to do that?
I did have somebody who inspired me, and her name is Megan Gaydosh, actually. Similar kind of story. I had been, I think I joined Facebook in like 2007 when Facebook came out. And, and then when Instagram came out, I joined Instagram, and I was posting, mostly just like my personal life, like, like pictures of going out with friends. And then I started learning more, like, if you want to get more followers, you should post about like the same, like one thing.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so should I post about my plants? Should I post about reading books? Because I read a lot of books. It's like, yeah, I could do that. And it's like, but there's a lot of those out there. And then the same thing, I joined TikTok, I think in the pandemic, I think when everybody did. And I remember like I was just scrolling on, and Megan comes on, and she was doing a parody of a Megan Trainor song. And I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And I was like, wow, like people are making videos about their facial difference. And I'm like, this is it. Like, this is what I need to do. Like, what better for me to talk about than my life? And then I started making videos, and people started, commenting like, yes, this is so relatable. And it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, like this is what I need to do.
I feel like you both, by doing that, you give voice that to others to feel that they can also share. I mean, look at the two of you, right? Megan did that, and then Tiffany, you're like, oh, I can do that too. So
yeah,
the domino
I
effect.
hope so. Yeah.
And can I just also say that I didn't have, well, you're somewhat younger than I didn't have nearly that confidence or desire to do that at your age. Of course, I didn't have social media then either. So for sure. So what are some of the social injustices you have encountered, and how have you addressed them?
There's just such a stigma around facial differences between the media, and then that translates into real life. I was called Two-Face in school and deformed girl, and constantly reminded that my difference was something to be mocked or something undesirable. And even just like going out with friends, like we went to like a makeup counter at the mall once, and everybody was getting their makeup done, and she wouldn't do my makeup because she was worried about my eye. I can't close my eye all the way. And that was just like, as like a preteen out with your friends, and then just, it was so humiliating, and I felt very like discouraged from makeup at that point, and was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. And finding other people in the community like wearing lipstick and like emphasizing their differences, like I always stayed away from anything that would highlight it. And different like Naomi, different creators who have all these amazing skills, I was like, okay, actually I am gonna wear the lipstick, I am gonna do my makeup how I want. And but it's just like the injustice is everywhere all the time. Majority in the media, and I think that's the biggest thing that we are trying to fight against, is that, like, having a facial difference doesn't, we're just like normal people, we just not see any more villains, and like or like a pity story, or it's just, we just need more representation and inclusion to just show us who we are.
Absolutely. I could totally relate, by the way, to wearing makeup and always feeling like that it's accentuated my differences. And I just, believe it or not, just starting to get much more comfortable with it. And having Naomi, and for those who don't know, Naomi is a makeup artist and photographer, also born with a facial difference, and having Naomi do my makeup recently and then looking at it and going, wow, like so beautiful, but like I never felt that comfortable with it. So yeah, it's definitely something that it's grown on me to realize that I can wear makeup. And one of the things is always my lips. Like I feel like if I accentuate my lips, then people will see the scar.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of social injustices, I think, that come along with having a facial difference. Everywhere you go, you get stared at. It just feels like I can't go anywhere without people staring at me, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I just want to go grocery shopping one time and not have everybody staring. And I feel like I also didn't get jobs that I was more than qualified for. And I was actually told during an interview that, you're very qualified, but you don't have the look that we're going for.
Wow.
And it's funny because at the time I didn't even think anything of it.
Right.
It was just like, okay, like maybe they wanted a blonde person, like maybe they wanted a blonde girl, but I was like, all right, maybe it's my curly hair, I don't know. And then like later on I was like, oh, it's because of my facial difference. And yeah, like Megan said, like, being portrayed in the media as villains, as, the outcasts, like the Quasimodos, the Freddy Kruegers, it just adds to that negative stigma. And it's why children, I feel like, are scared when they see people like us. Right. Because that's just the norm in our society, and it just needs to stop. They need new ideas.
So I know this is a big question. So what do you think we can do to change it, to improve it, to shift the way we think about these things?
I mean, I think we're doing it, like I feel like we're in a point of change, like little steps forward, which then can sometimes feel like we're taking steps back when we see facial differences portrayed in that way again. But I think everybody advocating is what's going to bring change. Like, the more people that call it out and say, hey, actually, this is very harmful to those of us living with facial differences. And I do feel like, you know, even with Disney, including in their show Firebeds, the character with the cleft lip, little things like that are starting to become, I think, more accepted. And what I think is so cool about that is that character in the show is just a character. Like, it's not emphasized that they have a cleft. It's just, this is a person that exists in the world. And I think the more that we see that, and it's not like, wow, look at what they can do even though they look like this, and it's just, this is just a person living their life, hanging out with their friends, doing normal things. Like, it is such a small piece of who we are, and there's so much more to tell. And I think we're heading in that direction, hopefully, little by little.
Absolutely. It is a slow process for sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's happening. There's things that are happening.
I agree. I think it would be awesome to see a movie where the main character has a facial difference, but it's a romance movie. And it's not about her having a facial difference. It's just, she just happens to have a facial difference, and she's in this like romance. And I think that it needs to start, like, the education needs to start when there's babies and there's children, and they need to be educated. Like, hey, there's people out there that look differently. There's people out there that have disabilities. There's people out there in wheelchairs. There's people out there that use walking aids. And, you know, maybe I've seen more toys out more recently than like when I was a child. Like, I've seen dolls that are in a wheelchair. And I think like that is definitely a great step forward, because it gets the kids like thinking. And then once they encounter somebody in real life, it's not like a shock. It's like, okay, I know all about this. And, you know, there's several children's books out there. You know, I think that's the right step, is to start teaching the little ones.
And I always, when I talk to the kids, I think about that a lot when I go into schools and getting them when they're young, because then it's like, oh, it's no big deal. It's just, that's a part of who somebody is. Just like somebody has glasses or they have whatever it is. And I also love seeing when they wake up to realize, oh, wait, somebody else has hearing aids like I do. Oh, that is so cool. Or that too. And so I think getting kids, I agree, getting them at a young age to be exposed to all kinds of differences just helps put everybody in some ways on an even playing field. It's just, okay, we all have differences. And I always emphasize that too, that we all have differences. And how boring the world would be if we were all the same. To our audience, I hope that you're enjoying this episode of myFace, myStory. Whether it's your first time joining us or you've been with us since the beginning, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube and Apple Podcast channels and sign up for our mailing list at myface.org/mystory. Can you each share a particularly impactful moment or story from your journey as an advocate?
Probably connecting with myFace is like kind of the first time that I got to see people in person that looked like me, or that just got it, you know? And there's just something so healing and like comforting and just exciting about getting to be with people for the first time that like really understand you in like kind of this unspoken even way. And yeah, getting to participate in myFace Celebrates last year and then again this year. But last year was my first time getting to be in person with people with facial differences. And it can feel very isolating and kind of lonely when you don't have those relationships. And so even though it's nice to have it from afar and talk to those people, to be in person is just such a gift. And yeah, so I thank myFace for that.
And what was it like for both of you to get up on stage and perform at myFace Celebrate?
Amazing.
It was, yeah. I did a lot of performing as a child. I was actually involved in the choirs, and I did dance. And, after high school that stopped and I wasn't performing on stage anymore. But so it took me back to that, and I was nervous, but it was so incredible. Like Megan said, just making those connections, knowing that this person knows what it's like, they get it. And just to be able to do that and, maybe show other people like, hey, I can do this too. If she can do it, why can't I?
So what advice do you have for parents who've just learned that their child has a facial difference? Tiffany?
I would say don't get all hung up on the comments that you see on people's, because I know I've heard from other parents that when they first learned about their child's condition, they went on the internet, of course, to research, and then they found social media accounts of people maybe that have that same condition, and the comments that people leave are just awful, and that's putting it nicely. And I think just as hard as it is to just kind of brush it off, because it is hard, try to find that community, try to find the us, like those of us that know what it's like, and we will support you, and make connections with organizations like myFace. I think that having that connection is going to make a world of difference.
In what ways do you think society can better support individuals with facial differences and promote inclusivity?
I think that kind of goes back to like a combination of showing kids differences, making that just normalized, and like in all children's books and shows, and so that it's more accepted and not like this mystery. The curiosity is kind of like, I understand as humans we're curious, but the more that kids are exposed to these things at home and not just out in the world, can reduce the stares and questions and things like that, and then hopefully translate also to the media to also represent people with differences in that way as well, to just normalize it and make it like the more representation there is, the more normalized it becomes, the less stigmas we have attached, and hopefully younger generations with facial differences will have an easier time, accepting themselves and feeling confident to just be who they are, Yeah.
So Tiffany, I was just thinking, when a parent is out with a child and another child says something, so your child says something about somebody who has a facial difference or any difference, how or what do you think a parent should do or say to help facilitate that conversation or that? Because I think what I hear too often is parents saying, don't say that.
Yes.
You shouldn't do that. And what that
Yeah.
does is almost creates a negative
Yes.
response. So what do you think a parent should do or say to help that?
Yes, I agree with that, and that's the same experiences that I've had. Is you hear, shh, don't say that, don't stare. It's not nice to stare, and I agree. I think that does make it a negative impact on the child, because now the child is afraid they're going to get in trouble,
Right.
and when really they're just curious. And yeah, I think the dialogue needs to start at home, and it needs to start, putting that idea in their brain. And I think it's like when children ask me, I always say something kind of like, well, you know how like some people have blonde hair and some people have, dark hair, or some people are born with maybe 9 fingers instead of 10. And then I say, like, I was born with, and I tell them about Mobius syndrome and what it is. And I just am like straightforward with them. And I think that's a great way for parents to address the situation. And I always recommend the book Wonder, of course, because I know
Right.
that was based, the author wrote that book because she had that exact situation where she almost like shushed her child and told him not to stare, and then she realized after the fact that that was not the right way to approach that
Right.
situation.
Yeah. I mean, as a parent, I think, like, I understand the I think they're embarrassed, I understand
Mhm.
that desire to just be like, just stop, stop, stop. But then, also being somebody with a difference, I think it's just, say hi. Like, just be
Right.
like, yeah, aren't they pretty? Or like, yeah, you want to
Yeah.
talk to them?
Yeah,
Not
I
to make
agree
it
with that.
seem like, don't look at them. Don't ask
Yeah.
questions. But that's also why I think it's so important to just do that, as much exposure to differences at home as possible, so that there's less of that when you're out in the world. Like, my kids have so many books on differences, and so when we do see things out there, like, my 6-year-old has commented like, oh, they have a facial difference. I'm like, yeah, isn't
Yeah.
that cool? Like, so just humanizing it,
Yes.
understanding that kids are going to be curious, and that's okay. And it probably is going to make the person feel more uncomfortable to, like, shush them and
Right.
make it, seem like they're not there, than to just, like, acknowledge them. Like, I used to, when people would stare at me when I was younger, I would just stare back,
Mm.
like, to try to make them feel as awkward as it felt for me. And then as I got older, when that would happen, I just, like, smile and wave and
Mhm.
just,
Right.
like, try to realize that probably wasn't the best tactic, even though it felt like, oh, you want to stare at me? You see how it feels. That just smiling, saying hi,
Yeah.
and then
Mhm.
they usually smile back, and then it's, I don't
And I remember just walking away or wanting to turn away and not
Mhm.
answer them. And then as I got older, especially now, even with little kids, because I realize that they still stare, they notice. And like you, Megan, I'll just turn and smile and say hello.
know.
And
Yep.
sometimes that's just okay. That works. So if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be and why?
Mm.
That's a great question. Um, I think I would tell her to learn how to love yourself, to make time to do things that make you happy, because you can't control what other people say or do.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe that if you love yourself and if you embrace yourself and your difference, that it doesn't matter what anybody says, because that's just, people have their own opinions based on their own perceptions of things they've experienced in their own life. And yeah, I think like once you learn to love yourself, it's just what other people say about you doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I would tell little me that nothing about you needs to change
Mm-hmm.
for you to love yourself and to pursue the things that you want to do. Um,
Hmm.
that, you are perfect just as you are, and
Yes.
just go get them.
Yes.
So who do you see when you look in the mirror today?
Badass.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I see a warrior. I see somebody who's fought many battles, and yet I'm still here and I'm still trying to make the world a kinder place. And yeah.
Love it. So thank you, Megan and Tiffany. You both are so beautiful and your beauty shines through.
Thank
I
you.
am so grateful to have advocates out there like the two of you because I didn't have, as I mentioned earlier, half the courage to advocate for others when I was younger. So there's no doubt in my mind that you are impacting so many lives, including mine. And so thank you again for sharing your journeys with us.
Thank you. And
Yes.
likewise. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you are making a lot of change now. So even if you didn't have that when you were younger, you're making up for it now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
Yes, I agree with Megan. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And you are such an inspiration to me too, Dina, because I see you doing things and I'm just like, that's amazing.
Aw,
So
thank,
thank you for being you.
thank you. Now I'm going to get teary-eyed. So
I
thank you.
Oh, big love fest.
Thank you. All right. Megan and Tiffany are an inspiration to me and everyone they meet. Everyone has a story, and I am hopeful that by sharing stories like these, we can create a kinder world. For more than 70 years, myFace has been dedicated to changing the faces and transforming the lives of children and adults with facial differences by providing access to holistic comprehensive care, education, resources, and support that pave the way for better outcomes. To learn more, please visit myface.org. If you would like to learn more about the myFace support groups so that you can connect with others in the craniofacial community, please visit myface.org/online-groups. Be sure to subscribe to myFace, myStory on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube to get notified of our next episode. If you'd like to receive email reminders of new episodes, sign up at myface.org/mystory. That's myface.org/mystory. Thank you for joining us for this episode of myFace, My Story. Remember, it takes courage to share your story, so be brave and speak out.